Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something pretty universal: self-doubt.
Yeah, that nagging feeling that can really, get in the way.
Absolutely. We've been looking at how we can tackle it, and one really powerful tool that keeps coming up is journaling.
Right. The act of writing things down, reflecting. It sounds simple, but the impact can be significant.
Exactly. And we want to explore how it works, particularly thinking about the kind of tools we use, like the Listalian journals we've mentioned before. They're really designed with this kind of reflection in mind.
Uh-huh. Because self-doubt, it shows up in so many ways, doesn't it? Imposter syndrome, that fear of failing, just constant negative self-talk.
Totally. It can really undermine your confidence, your mental health.
And the goal here, our mission for this dive, is really to unpack how journaling, maybe specifically using a quality journal like a Listalian, helps you challenge those thoughts.
Yeah, how it helps you gain clarity and actually build up that self-assurance. Because that paper quality, the durability, it signals something important about the process.
It does. It makes the practice feel more intentional.
It reminds me a bit of my cousin, actually. He was hesitating for months about starting this little side business he was passionate about.
Oh yeah, what was holding him back?
Just this constant internal monologue of, what if it fails? What if people think it's stupid? Am I really capable of this? Classic self-doubt stuff.
Uh-huh. The usual suspects.
Right, and he almost didn't do it, missed out on something he really wanted. And I just keep thinking, if he'd had a space, like a journal, to just get those fears out, maybe argue with them on paper.
It could have shifted his perspective. It
Mm.
often does. That externalization is key.
So let's dig into that. Where does this stuff, this self-doubt, actually come from?
Well, research points to a few common culprits. Things like low self-esteem may be rooted in past experiences, negative feedback loops.
Or comparing ourselves constantly to others, especially online these days.
Definitely. Social comparison is a big one.
Yep.
And also perfectionism, that drive to be flawless.
Oh, that's a trap. That feeling of it's not good enough, so you just procrastinate or don't even start.
Exactly. It's a major source of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's, as you mentioned, imposter syndrome, that feeling you're a fraud even when you have evidence you're competent.
Yeah, waiting to be found out.
Right, and just that harsh inner critic constantly pointing out flaws, plus the straightforward fear of failure avoiding challenges altogether.
It's quite a cocktail of negativity.
It is. But recognizing these specific patterns in yourself, that's the first crucial step. You need to see it to change it.
Okay, so how does journaling help with that identification piece?
Well, writing forces you to articulate the thoughts, but features in some journals, like the table of contents you find in certain Listalian models, that can be really practical here.
How so?
Think about it. You could dedicate sections or just tag entries whenever you notice, say, that perfectionist thinking popping up, or when the inner critic gets loud.
So use the table of contents to track those specific instances?
Exactly. Over time, you build this map of your own self-doubt triggers and themes. It makes the patterns undeniable, much clearer than when they're just thoughts bouncing around in your head.
That's really smart. Organizing the chaos, in a way.
Precisely. I worked with someone once, a graphic designer, incredibly talented, but plagued by perfectionism. Starting any new project was agony.
Because the blank page felt too intimidating.
Totally. The fear of not meeting his own impossible standards. He started journaling, just getting the anxiety down on paper.
Did it help him see the pattern?
It really did. He wrote about the pressure he felt before even starting, and seeing it written down, entry after entry, helped him realize how unrealistic it was. He consciously started breaking projects into tiny steps.
And celebrating the small wins, maybe?
Yes, exactly that. Celebrating just getting started or finishing a small component. It gradually lessened that initial fear, just by identifying and then actively countering the perfectionist tendency he saw in his journal.
That's a great example. So identifying is the first step. How does journaling then help actively shift that negative thinking? Because our mindset really shapes our reality, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Self-doubt reinforces itself. It creates these negative mental pathways. Journaling helps carve out new, more positive ones.
Okay, like how? What are the specific techniques?
Well, one big one is writing positive affirmations. Consciously choosing and writing down statements about your strengths, your worth, your ability to cope.
So actively replacing the negative self-talk.
Yes, you're deliberately feeding your mind positive input. It sounds a bit cliche sometimes, but the act of writing them consistently makes a difference, especially perhaps in a journal that feels substantial, important.
Right, it gives them more weight. What else?
Tracking your wins. Self-doubt often blinds us to our successes, so making a daily habit of noting down things you accomplish, even small things.
Like, I spoke up in that meeting, or I finished that difficult email.
Exactly. Anything. It builds this concrete evidence file against the self-doubt.
Mm.
You look back and see, wow, I actually do achieve things.
Mm.
Using those lined pages in a listallion, maybe one line per win, gives you a visual list.
Builds momentum. I like that. And gratitude practice, I imagine that fits in here too.
Definitely. Focusing on what you do have, what you appreciate, shifts your focus away from perceived lacks or failures. It fosters a generally more positive baseline.
Which makes it harder for the negativity to take root.
Precisely. And then there's reframing failures. This is huge. Instead of seeing a mistake or a setback as proof you're inadequate,
We look for the lesson.
you look for the lesson, you ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? Journaling is the perfect place to process that, to consciously reframe the narrative around setbacks.
Okay, so affirmations, wins, gratitude, reframing, powerful stuff. You mentioned Listallian journals often have numbered pages. How does that feature play into this shifting process?
Numbered pages are great for tracking progress over time. Let's say you're working through that reframing idea. You might write about a difficult experience on page 50, feeling pretty low about it. Then, maybe a week later, on page 65, you reflect again. What did you learn? How have your feelings changed?
So the numbers let you easily flip back and see that evolution.
Exactly. You can literally trace your shift in perspective. You see the growth documented. It's incredibly reinforcing to realize you can change how you view things.
I can see that. It's like building your own personal case study in resilience. I had a friend who used this, maybe not intentionally at first. She was job hunting, facing rejection after rejection.
Tough situation.
Yeah, and she felt like a total failure, but she kept a journal, just venting mostly. But sometimes she'd jot down something small she learned from an interview, even a bad one. Her journal had numbered pages.
And later,
Later, feeling discouraged, she flipped back. And she saw this pattern disappointment, yes, but almost always followed by some note about a lesson learned or a new approach to try. Seeing that documented journey on those numbered pages, it really helped her realize she wasn't failing, she was adapting.
that's it right there. The power of reflection, facilitated by simple features.
So let's talk a bit more about those Listallian features. We know they focus on quality, that luxurious faux leather, the nice paper.
Mm-hmm.
How do those tangible things specifically help with something as internal as self-doubt?
It's about the experience, the ritual. That smooth paper, for instance. If your pen just glides, no scratching, no bleed through, it removes friction.
Makes you want to write more.
Exactly. It encourages consistency, which is vital for changing thought patterns, and the durable build, the solid hardcover. It feels like it respects the importance of the work you're doing.
Like this journey of self-discovery is worth investing in, worth protecting.
Precisely. And that soft touch cover some have, it can feel comforting, safe. You're often putting vulnerable thoughts down,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
having a journal that feels physically welcoming can make it easier to be honest with yourself. It becomes a trusted space,
And the lined pages in many models, like the Arajois or Garano, we touched on structure.
right? When you're untangling complex feelings or trying to pin down those slippery negative thoughts, the lines provide a helpful guide. They encourage clarity, prevent thoughts from feeling too scattered. It helps organize the internal dialogue.
So it's not just a notebook. The physical qualities are actually part of the therapeutic process, helping you engage more deeply.
I really believe so. The whole package encourages intentionality and makes the sometimes difficult work of facing self-doubt feel a bit more manageable, even inviting.
Okay, so wrapping this up then, what's the main thing we want people to take away from this deep dive?
I think the core message is that journaling is a genuinely powerful, accessible strategy for managing and overcoming self-doubt. It's not magic, it takes consistency, but it gives you that essential space for self-reflection, for seeing those negative patterns clearly.
And for actively practicing techniques like affirmations, gratitude, reframing, tracking wins, all stuff that builds a more positive mindset.
Exactly. It builds self-awareness, mindfulness, and empowers you to challenge those old, unhelpful beliefs and step into more confidence.
And using a premium journal, something like a Listallian, it isn't strictly necessary, but it enhances the experience. It becomes more than just paper. It's like a companion in that growth, with features thoughtfully designed to support the journey.
Well said. It elevates the practice.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Consider how creating that dedicated space, maybe with a tool you actually enjoy using, could help you start rewriting your own inner story.
What's one small step, maybe just one sentence you could write down today to begin that process?
Food for thought. That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for exploring this with us.